Hello everyone, welcome back to DCS World Tempest Blue Flash server and welcome back to the Apache. So I really want to get into this helicopter. I've had the module for ages, had some fun with it, never really got massively into it, and so thought it's about time that I jump back onto Tempest Blue Flash and take this helicopter out for a spin. At first I was just flying off on my own, but a little bit later I am joined by Dougy and Hardy, who are sharing their own Apache, and altogether we had a lot of fun blowing up ground targets, getting blown up by air targets, and then chasing off some planes, so let's jump in. So because so much of this I was flying on my own, I'll be giving a voiceover for this video. So here is my first little sortie where currently I am flying on my own, just trying to locate targets. For some reason I'm finding that George is having a hard time visually IDing targets until they are really close. I spotted these two vehicles a while ago, and only now at this range is he getting a lock. Not sure if I'm doing something wrong or if he's just being weird, but either way I get two nice hits there. I'm deciding to fly here with the 16 Hellfires, just because I really like Hellfires. I have difficulty with the rockets, so I'm making this nice and easy on myself. And I do spot this second group that isn't too far away, immediately turn to engage, and there I get a hit. That was a truck off to one side, but I do see there are a couple of APCs which are a bit more of a threat. So fire off a missile on them, and then there's just one more APC there. Can see it is engaging me, but I'm just side-slipping a bit, which is normally enough to make these APCs miss their shots. As long as you just change your aspect, change how you're flying, they do take a little bit of a couple hits, but nothing bad. At this point I decide that all that's left is these trucks, so I may as well shoot at the trucks. Do have some issues here though. I'm trying to use the head mounted camera, it's not working too great on that pass, so I end up just giving up and telling George to use the gun instead. A little bit less fun, but he is a lot more accurate with it. There we go, get one nice set of hits there. Give myself a little bit of distance so I was flying right over him. Tell him to engage again. He gets nice hits on that one. Trying to convince George here that he should be engaging the final truck. He eventually locates it and puts a few rounds through it. At that point that is all the trucks down, or I thought it was. There's one extra truck, just misremembering. George does identify it, can maybe see on the display there, he's looking straight at it, puts a few more rounds into the engine compartment. That is that all clear. Now I do have some more targets up ahead. I've found a small group of tanks in the same area. These definitely want to use my Hellfires on. Again, I had these spotted quite a while before, but George was only happy actually locking them at this much shorter range. So I need to either get better at how I identify these, or George needs to get his eyes checked. Certainly he seems to find it harder to spot things than Petrovic does in a much less advanced aircraft. Still, that's one tank destroyed, locking up the next one, attempting to. Eventually George acknowledges that it is a thing, and fire another one away. Nice simple shack there, and then I move on to this next group of tanks a little further away, just skipping over the approach there. I'm trying to take this nice and slow. We have some BMPs, some Chieftain tanks. Decide to fire on the Chieftain tanks. They're all about the same threat to me. And so just decide to take out the heavier things first. None of these are too dangerous as long as I keep moving. The bigger threat is if they do open up with their autocannons and or 50 cals, they can hurt me. Start here locking on with the APCs. They're a little bit closer. They have started to move a little bit. What I see there is they have actually fired a tow at me. Luckily I am drifting to the side enough, and I think it was the one that I killed that had fired the tow, and so the tow went dumb at that point. So I do need to be a little bit careful. These particular APCs do have tow missiles, and tow missiles hurt. Now, they're trying to get the lock on this last one, fire off another missile, trying to keep it steady enough that George doesn't have issues maintaining his lock, while still moving around enough that I don't get shot by targets of opportunity. I do mess up here. Not too experienced in the Apache, and sometimes I do just lose control, and that there I was just flying a little bit too slow, and so started to lose body lift. Got in a little bit of VRS trouble, but managed to catch it. Determined to get this last thing that is just hovering off here, and so making a few drunken turns. Do get it stabilised again. Try and convince George to actually see this last vehicle that is right in front. He eventually acknowledges its existence. Fire off the tow, or the Hellfire. Good hit. There we go. And then just continue on as this. Nice thing about the Apache is you do get a lot of missiles. You can do a lot of damage in one sortie. Each Hellfire is pretty much a guaranteed hit, unless George does something a bit funky. And there's an example of him doing something a bit funky. We're a little bit low. For some reason he is targeting a little bit above this APC instead of the body of the APC. And so the missiles are just going a little bit too far. So I decide to adjust things, go to a higher altitude so his laser is pointing a little bit more downward. And see there, that one fired off a little bit better. And that time I do get the shack. Fortunately that did waste a couple, so I'm down to my last Hellfire here. But this one he fires off, still at the slightly higher altitude, so it comes down a little bit more vertically, and I get the hit. There we go, all done, and then it's just a case of returning to the base. It's quite a long trip. These maps are fairly big between the base and the front line. Not great at landing the Apache, but it is easier than landing than the Hind. So get down, rearm, refuel, and this time I am joined by Hardy and Dougy. They're in a separate Apache just behind me. And as we're going in there, I take a hit. I didn't see what it was, but just see the shadow of a jet passing overhead. At this point I have severe engine damage. I'm not getting anywhere near the lift I should be. See, the engine really is struggling. I am just trying to make a soft landing now more than anything, and I don't particularly manage that. Instead I come down rather hard, lose a lot there, and then just as I look, it's MiG-21 makes a pass on the other helicopter and then goes into the ground, and Hardy shouts with excitement as he gets a maneuver kill on a jet. Now they are very, very badly damaged. Dougy lands it, but decides that it is rather too damaged to continue the mission, but it is alive enough that he can limp back. I meanwhile definitely cannot limp back. When I try and take off it just starts spinning, so I hop out to take a look at exactly what's wrong with my helicopter and look over towards Dougy. He's still on the ground. You can see I've got a few little holes, minor damage, nothing too bad, until I decide to go for a little bit of a walk here. And as I go for a stroll around, once I work out which way I'm supposed to be facing, here we go, I go to the rear of my aircraft and notice something rather critical is missing. That I landed via the tail. I've got no idea where the rest of the tail is, but yeah, this helicopter is not taking off. Also, yes, I realise now that I should have turned the engine off before getting out, but oh well. Either way, it is just then a time to get started up again. Turn everything back on and get back in the air. I do try to escort Dougy and Hardy back. They do manage to make it. He does manage to actually limp this back on one engine and gets back to the other side. But after repairs for both of us, we take off, we head towards the front, again in a two-ship, and this is as we're approaching, I suddenly notice there is something on my nose, something very angry looking, realise it is an F-14. We don't know whether it's friendly or not at this point, but he's not looking particularly friendly. Unfortunately, on this server there are 14s on both sides, so visual IDing is difficult. I decided not to have early warning radar on at this point, which was a mistake. And so just trying to keep an eye on this guy. George does see him, and as he comes in, I realise he's trying to shoot me down, so yeah, definitely a hostile. Unfortunately, I don't have too much that I can do. I just try turning into him, keep that turn sharp, and so he ends up flying off. I'm guessing he was trying to get a radar lock there and didn't manage. If he was firing guns, he probably could have got me on that pass. Instead, here he comes back for me very, very vertically, so I try again, turning sharply. He fires a missile that gets no lock, so that just slams into the dirt behind me. In the other helicopter, Hardy is doing his best to get a lock with the camera. I'm just doing my best to tell George to point at this guy. Unfortunately, I get a mark on Hardy, but then I do find the jet. Do get the laser lock on him. These missiles are not meant for firing at other aircraft, but I decide, well, I'll try anyway. Unfortunately, right when I do is when this guy decides that he's had enough of this, and instead he goes heads off towards the rest of our territory, heading towards our base, and unfortunately the Hellfire just can't catch him. I was kind of counting on him turning back to engage when there would at least be a chance. Either way, we're not really trusting this guy, keeping an eye on him. He's fired on something. That is our friendly airfield over there that he is attacking. You may just be able to see a little white plume that the SAM site has fired back at him. So, missile there, you can see it heading in towards some target lowdown. The missile does eat a flare instead, so he continues on. The SAM fired at him, misses, but that player over there manages to shoot him down. So there we go, survived our encounter with the first fast mover. So very shortly later, approaching some vehicles on the ground here. See a couple of them, but they turn out to be friendly. And then as we're getting a little bit closer, see another fast mover, very low level on the other side of this smokestack here. And this time George IDs it. It's a MiG-29, those are only on the other side, so this is a hostile. And so immediately we're back in the same situation of being a helicopter without any air-to-air missiles being engaged by an air superiority fighter. This time though he does turn in. I fire and the missile just goes dead straight off the rack. Doesn't want to go for him at all that time. Try to get the nose back around. And but at this point he is cold to me, so I decide, well, there's no point, missile's not going to get him, I really need to try as he's heading straight towards me. He loops around, low level, engaging. I fire off one, it doesn't quite have the ability to turn to bring it round on his nose there. Little bit of a shame, but he then extends out. Hardy and Dougy are also with me here, trying to do the same thing. This guy's going high, doing my best to keep my nose in such a position that I can get a missile off if possible. It's coming back down, heading straight at me. Fires a missile, my system's auto flare there, and the missile just barely misses me, which I am very thankful for. Unfortunately, in my evasive manoeuvre there, I've lost eyes on him. Communicating with Dougy and Hardy to try and get our bearing again. Luckily we can use the big smokestack as our kind of bullseye here, and to get eyes on the guy again. And again, George's doing a good job here. He's got another targeting pod lock. Fire off another one, but you can really see there these missiles just are not designed to hit fast movers, and so unless I've got him heading straight at me, there's really not much these missiles can do. Mostly just trying to be a little bit cheeky here, make him be a little bit more afraid. I'd absolutely love it if we had some kind of air-to-air missile on the Apache, but right now these are not really working. I instead try firing the cannon at him, but I realise that I'm really not good at judging this. I'm not going to get the hit there. So instead I give things back over to George, see what George can do with this situation. Now just as I do, this guy decides to extend out again. But he does start coming back in. He's decided he's not done with us. He really, really wants this kill. Now, I don't think he gave himself enough distance with that extension there, so as he turns back in he doesn't quite get nose on me, so he's just going to zip past again. Engaging. George does open up on him here, doing his best to get some kind of really high aspect shot. It would only take one bullet to hit him. These are very big, I think they're 40 mils on the Apache. Unfortunately, being these 40 mils and essentially grenades, they really don't have very high velocity. They're not designed for air-to-air engagement. Now, Hardy does at this point give out a call for assistance, because we could really use it at this point. And we do get a call back, but there's no one around for the next 10 minutes. But this guy does seem to disengage at this point, so we kind of shrug our shoulders and let him disappear off into the distance. Now, just as we return to our formation, begin heading back for the enemy, the MiG-29 decides to head back in, and so we are still not done being intercepted here. Now, I do spot him off my nose there. I believe Hardy and Dougy's Apache is currently hiding in the smokestack. I am trying to get George to identify this guy because I'm still rather determined that I'm going to do something. Now, hiding behind the smoke here, he definitely can't visually see me. And there, as we look away, he gets shot down. So once again, we are free to continue on our way. As we start to approach, there is an aerial battle, but the battle now is at high altitude. It's up there at the cloud layer, so we're not too worried. Instead, we start going in on these ground targets, trying to pick things that we can engage here.
Blazing.
So George spots something. Hardy at this point has determined that there are enemies in front of us. He starts engaging very well. I fire from a little bit more range here.
Roger, engaging.
I do get some missile launch warnings. Those are just coming from Hardy firing the Hellfires from off my 7 o'clock. I don't get visual ID on what I'm firing on here, but George has decided he can see things, so I'm quite happy to believe him. We're in enemy territory, so anything he does spot is hostile, and so may as well be firing into him.
Lasers off. Those are good hits.
Whatever he did fire on, he reports it destroyed, so fair enough. I then just proceed on my way. The other two are doing their best to get into a little bit of shorter range. I think they now overtake me and head towards the buildings. I have a hard time trying to find anything else. Then, a little bit later, I do have some more luck. Do spot these two things just in this open field here between the three sets of buildings. Do lock on a target. There's a truck and a ground vehicle. Decide the ground vehicle is much more important. Fire off my missile.
Lasers off. Target destroyed.
And nicely enough, that does work a lot better. You can see the SAMs going up. That's the result of the air battle there. Hunting around for more targets. I don't want to use a Hellfire on the truck here. It's a little bit overkill-y. Getting lots of missile warning pings because of the battle. Then as I turn back around, there is a couple of tows that have been launched at me. And I thought I had dodged it, but on the replay I do hear a little bang as it crosses behind. I think it hit my tail, so I seem to lose all yaw control. And then, unfortunately, I go down. So yeah, three very different sorties there. First I had a really successful air-to-ground sortie, then I had a very unsuccessful sortie when I got intercepted, and then we had that really weird sortie where, despite everything, we managed to keep two air superiority fighters at bay until they both got shot down. So I had a lot of fun with this. I definitely want to do some more Apache stuff in the future. If you'd like to see more Apache stuff, please do let me know with a like or a comment down below. Otherwise, I hope to catch you in the next video. Till then, remember to be kind to yourselves and everyone else. Cheers.